Barcelona taking on Atletico Madrid today. It would finish 2-2, meaning that Real Madrid remain top of the table, 1 point clear of Barca. Madrid in action later this week against Getafe have the chance to go 4 clear. So much to talk about from this 90 minutes. Ali Moreno and Craig Burley with us. Let's go overall, shall we, Craig? 2-2, fair?
I think as an away side, Atletico Madrid could feel a little bit unlucky they didn't take 3 points. I think they looked a better, more cohesive side. I know Barcelona dominated the possession, as you would expect. But I like some of Atletico's passing. It was really sharp and really crisp. Carrascos was fantastic down that left-hand side. The bench was strong. They defended well. They snuffed Suarez out, who hardly got a kick. Obviously, a lot of penalties in the game, a lot of VAR involvement and stuff like that. But I actually think, although Barcelona were desperate for the win, of course they were to try and put some more pressure on Real Madrid. I think Atleti done enough to take the 3 points away. And when you look at their performance, and I know they've had injuries this season, it's a real head-scratcher why, that apart, there's so many points behind in this title race.
It's interesting Craig picks up on Atleti, Ali, because this wasn't the dirty rolling over Atleti that maybe we're used to seeing in these big matches. They came to play toe-to-toe with Barca, and they almost took all 3 points.
And they're able to do that because Barcelona allows so much time and space in transition. And what we have pointed time and time again for Barcelona is that any team that has a little bit of change of pace in that transition and a little bit of quality going forward is going to create problems for them. And the best example of that is the first penalty kick, in which Carrascos, basically at the midfield line, turns on Quique, goes on speed, and there's nobody to catch up. There's just not enough speed in transition for Barcelona, and they did that time and time and time again, whether it was the late run of Carrascos, whether it was Saúl Ñíguez coming from the midfield. Late on, it was Morata who was running in behind. Llorente was creating problems as well. And any time that Atletico Madrid was able to play through the initial pressure of Barcelona, there was a counterattack that, if properly executed, would have meant that Atletico Madrid would have won this game.
What was wrong with Barca today? Why were they so vulnerable to these attacks, Craig?
I just think they have been for a while, and they are so open and have been so open, and they're creaking at the back. They've got a wonderful goalkeeper that's really kept teams at bay many, many times in Ter Stegen. But they have been very, very open, and they're not as compact. When I think about them against Real Madrid, I think about Real Madrid, who seem more organised in the defensive aspect of the game. Not necessarily that they've got more defensive players, but seem more organised. It seems as if they work on that aspect of the game the same as they work on their offensive aspect. It seems to me that for Barcelona, they just sort of fell in a position where they can. And as Ali said, Atletico could have exploited them today. Look, I think they have a coach here who's like a rabbit in the headlights. Yeah. I know he's coached for many, many years. I know he's hugely experienced, but not at coaching Barcelona, not at going for the league title, not up against Zidane and Real Madrid. And it's shown, because you look at the team selection, you look at the substitutions, you look at the fact that it was 90 minutes almost in the clock before he brought Antoine Griezmann on. Now, I understand, Griezmann's not had the best of seasons, but as Ali, I think before we came on air, he was not very complimentary about Luis Suarez, and correctly so. He's a fantastic player, but he never got a kick. He never got a snuff from Jimenez and Felipe, the two centre-halves, yet he never made a change until that board went up for injury time. That's terrible management when you need to pick up all the points and you've got a striker who's not playing well. Even if it meant putting Messi up front, bringing another midfielder or two on and reshaping the team. It didn't have to be Griezmann, but he had to do something to change it up, and he did little or nothing when it was too late.
How did you describe Luis Suarez, Ali, for those who weren't listening pre-show?
He was running like he had a piano on his back. And I'm being kind to him. I really think, and I'm not part of the medical staff of Barcelona, nor do I pretend to be a doctor, but you look at him running, and there's some serious difficulties there. He looks uncomfortable with his movement, and yet he was out there for 90 minutes. When Craig is talking about the organization or lack thereof of Barcelona, Today, there was a change in formation by Quique Setien in which he puts out a diamond midfield. And when they were at their best today, well, it did look like a diamond when Ricky Puig at the very front of that. Then behind him would be Sergio Busquets, and on the side would be Vidal and Rakitic. But the problem for Barcelona is that they cannot maintain any sense of order and organization on the field. So that diamond became a cubic zirconium as the game wore on. And so there is people running all over the place. There is no sense of organization. There is no sense of spacing. And then when that happens, they revert back to something that has bailed them out in the past. And they say, we're going to give the ball to Messi and see if he does something. And if he's able to pick out a pass or make a run or score a goal, and somehow we win this game. Instead of continuing to play their way through the midfield and trying to trust the players and the talent they have in that area of the field, see if they can break through. When they get disorganized, and it happens more times than not, that's when they get stretched, and now you're dependent on individual players, and it just doesn't happen. As for Luis Suarez, I have to tell you again, I felt bad for the guy. He doesn't look right to me, but I guess for Quique Setien, he looked all right enough to leave him out there for 90 minutes. I would have thought that the substitution, not only of Antoine Griezmann, but Ansu Fati would have come earlier. They didn't, and in the end, 2-2. And it's fortunate at times for Barcelona for it to be 2-2.
Let's take it through then some of the key incidents in this game, starting off with Diego Costa's own goal. Rather unfortunate, Craig, from an unfortunate area as well, it seemed. Anything you could have done about that?
No, there's nothing he could have done, because what happened here was the marking at the front post was actually poor. I can't remember who it was, but I think they were marking Busquets. It might have been Thomas Partey, but I'm not sure. But he allowed the Barcelona player to get ahead of him. And that resulted in a small flick on, which meant Diego Costa saw it late. And I think he saw in his body language at the goal, he said, well, there's basically nothing I can do about it because I couldn't react quickly enough. But the marking at the front post was what made this problem happen, because the player got wrong side and Costa was left with nothing that he could do. And it was an unfortunate incident and it just hit him low enough that it wasn't too bad an incident for Diego Costa.
He had the chance then to almost immediately make amends, Ali, given the penalty after Carrasco won it. Had the penalty saved. VAR, though, took a look. Ter Stegen just off his line. Was this the right decision?
It is the right decision. And much like the offsides calls that people get crazy about because, well, is it an inch? Is it not an inch? Is it too close and not too close? What are we doing? The spirit of the game, so on and so forth. The law of the game is very clear in that the goalkeeper cannot gain an advantage by stepping off his line. Ter Stegen did, makes a save, and correctly brought back by VAR.
Diego Costa then didn't take the penalty again, Craig. Saul came and scored it. If you were Costa, would you have fought harder to take it, or were you more than happy to shirk the responsibility?
No, I don't think he was shirking the responsibility. I think he was accepting the fact that his penalty was saved and there was a bigger picture. Personally, myself, I would have taken it again. But, you know, sometimes a decision like that, I think it was clearly it was a good decision, but I think it was a sensible decision at the time. But it just comes down to the player himself. And, you know, if Costa felt he wanted to take it, he's big enough, ugly enough and strong enough, I'm sure he could have got it off Saul, who actually did take 2 penalties in the game, as you know.
Yeah, indeed. We'll talk about the second one in a moment. Let's talk about the Messi penalty that came 4 minutes into the second half before we talk about the Panenka. Was it a penalty for you, Ali?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's contact, but the angles that the camera showed us didn't exactly make it very clear and obvious for the call to be overturned. And so therefore, Felipe, who lunges, and when he lunges, that's the moment in which he gets into trouble. If there's any contact at all, I think is minimal at best. I don't think it was a penalty, but Felipe asked for it once he went reaching for a ball that he had no chance to getting to.
Craig?
Yeah, I think the issue here was it wasn't too dissimilar to the one given against Carrasco by Arturo Vidal. There might have been a little bit more contact, but it was a little bit similar in terms of the leg was just thrown out there. And I think for that reason, one, the referee gave it, and two, VAR decided that they were never going to overturn it, because the similarities with the one that Atletico were you know, probably 60-40.
As a man who used to take penalties, wasn't bad, was it, from Messi, considering the pressure?
Well, he doesn't feel the pressure. He's not going to get sacked if Barcelona don't win the league. So as much as he wants to do it, look, at the end of the day, he's got the confidence. He's got a gazillion goals again. He carries the team, and it's just unsurprising. So maybe one day a goalkeeper will just stand there and make him look rather silly.
It's a filthy way to get your 700th goal. And we thought that would be it, Ali. You know, despite the problems, this will be it. Messi's incredible penalty saved the day, keeps Barca in this title hunt. However, as Craig mentioned, another penalty to Atleti. Saul takes it 2-2. This a penalty for you?
Yeah, and it is a fortuitous contact, if you will, an accident, if you will, from Semedo. But there is no doubt that he does clip Yannick Carrasco from behind and gets him off balance and impedes his progress. And so, therefore, I don't think the referee had any choice but to make the call. As the fact that Semedo meant it or didn't mean it, well, that doesn't really matter, because in the end, he takes Carrasco down, and I don't think there's a doubt this was a penalty.
Craig mentioned it early on. When Quique Setien was hired, a lot of people in La Liga who cover La Liga were very excited about the fact that this is the sort of manager that Barcelona need. He plays exactly their sort of style. But Craig said it at the time, and I think others did as well, in the sense that it's one thing doing it for a smaller club, but doing it for Barcelona with that personnel is a very different matter. That point's kind of been proved, hasn't it, over the last few weeks?
Well, I think, Dan, what you just mentioned there is very key with that personnel, because you're dealing with a different group of players and a different group of personalities and players who have been very successful at the highest level, with national team, with club team. They've achieved everything there is to achieve in the game. And so, therefore, when you come into that locker room, it doesn't really matter what you have done in the past with other teams. Those things are not all that important. What matters is what you do in the training sessions with Barcelona, and then the plan they put forth, that you believe it as a player, that they buy into it. And I think what has been clear over the last week or so, when we have heard rumblings coming out of the Barcelona locker room, is that they're not really buying into it. Now, some of it has to do with the fact that some of these Barcelona players are pointing the finger everywhere else other than themselves, and they're not really taking responsibility for what's going on. But outside of that, you can also say that there are moments here where Quique Setien hasn't had, I wouldn't say the experience. I would say the experience with Barcelona, the experience in this hot seat, to be able to deal with what is a complicated job, because there's pressures not only coming from the locker room, but there's pressures coming from the outside and the front office and the board and all the expectations that come with a club that has achieved so much. But this version of Barcelona is flawed. And so regardless of who's sitting there, they're going to run into some challenges, because at the very end, there are holes in this team that you cannot just plug with Messi scoring a big goal or Ter Stegen making a save.
How do we say this? Craig, were you right?
About what?
About hiring Setien was a mistake.
Well, he's got to the end of the season to try and prove it. Look, I don't know. Certainly on the face of it at the moment, he's making some poorish decisions. I was playing for the national team once, and it was a big game. It was a qualifier. And our coach said to us, listen, if we get this team on the back foot, their manager doesn't know how to change it in-game. People get the wrong idea of coaching sometimes. The best managers and head coaches are not the ones that are the best on the training ground. They're not necessarily the ones that pick the best team, but they're the ones that make the best decisions during the 90 minutes plus. Because that's key, because the game is fast and furious, and the other teams do things differently, or people make mistakes, or somebody's having a poor game, and you got to make those big decisions. Well, let's just take today in isolation. His decision-making was pretty horrendous. He sat in his hands. He watched his team get hit in the counter-attack. He watched his main striker hardly get a kick of the ball, and he did little or nothing. And that tells me at the moment he's sitting on the bench and he's struggling to come up with a concrete way forward, how he could have changed that game. And if that continues, there's only going to be one winner in La Liga, and it will not be Barcelona under this manager.
Real Madrid win 5 of their next 6, the final 6. They are champions no matter what Barcelona do. Ali, is it over?
It's over. I gave you 80-20 a couple of days ago, and now that's 90-10, and it's really trending in the wrong direction for Barcelona. The only hope that Barcelona have is the game that Real Madrid has against Athletic Bilbao.
Yeah.
And that somehow they lose that game, but they still have to drop points somewhere else, and Barcelona has to be perfect. And that in itself is a part of the equation that I don't think is 100% correct for Barcelona. I don't think they can be perfect. They have shown time and time again over the last couple of weeks that they can lose points to anybody that they play against. And so therefore, I really think that this is all about Real Madrid. They seem the more solid team. They seem to be the more organized team, and therefore the team that will come out winners of La Liga this year.
Is it done, Craig?
Yeah, I think it's hard to see Real Madrid making too many, if any, mistakes, and hard to see Barcelona going on a complete winning run to the end of the season. Even with the morally corrupt signing they made to try and get themselves over the line, they're still not going to do it. How much fate will that be?
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.